Hi, America. I'm Legia Miller. Over the Christmas holiday week, among posts about the rigged 2020 election, Jeffrey Epstein, and Nigerian strikes, Trump posted numerous times about fraud in Minnesota under the leadership of Democratic Governor Tim Walz, perpetrated by Somali immigrants who stole taxpayer money from the state and sent it to the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Nick Shirley, a 23-year-old YouTuber from Utah who calls himself an independent journalist and was a guest at Trump's Antifa roundtable for right-wing influencers back in October, posted a video on December 26th called I Exposed Minnesota's
I will. Hold on,
billion dollar posted a video on Trump's Antifa roundtable for right-wing influencers back in October, posted a video on December 26th called I Exposed Minnesota's billion-dollar fraud scandal. It has gotten 1.4 million views on YouTube and over 100 million views on Twitter in 3 days. It caught Trump's attention and received praise.
And I'm just more curious. Oh, there's a whole entire video. I don't like pop-ups. Why does it have pop-ups? So it's so okay. Looking this earlier this month, I'm looking at NPR. Had posted a roundtable about Antifa, that's what he's labeling far left movement or ideology opposed to fascism. To designate, so it was an anti-fascism roundtable / meeting. So wouldn't that just be a fascism roundtable then? And this is October 20. So earlier in October. So it's very interesting that Nick Shirley being one of those, and then shortly afterwards, well, relatively like 2 months afterwards, he did a video. So that's curious.
From the likes of J.D. Vance and FBI Director Kash Patel. It has spurred on federal and state investigations and instigated responses from officials across the federal and Minnesota state governments. But is this reporting accurate? Is there widespread fraud in the state of Minnesota? Is the Somali community to blame? Is Tim Walz to blame? Today, we're breaking down what's actually happening here in my home state, where I actually live among the dreaded Somali immigrant community here in Minneapolis. We'll look at Nick Shirley's video as well as the actual investigative reporting by real journalists. And we'll discover that many things can be true at the same time, and that nuance and critical thinking are once again proving difficult for Trump and his MAGA base, who are eating this shit up hook, line, and sinker. In his viral video exposing Minnesota's fraud scandal, Nick Shirley interviews a man named David, no last name provided, who has been doing his own research to discover Somali fraud in Minnesota, which includes numbers on a...
Okay, and I'm just doing this because since it's going on for 50 years, this is only showing the last 30 years. Because I wanted to see the governor's limits. Show, like, I'm zooming into this. So, like, back since 2011, I would have to see when did he assumed office in 2019. And so basically there was Republicans, so, like, it's not even a Democrat or, like, a Republican issue. I'm curious what happened between 1999 and 2003, because, like, in 1999, they made it so they got rid of their state treasurer. By the way, random factoid, Texas and Florida also did the same thing. So I think we should also investigate those states for fraud, because I think a state treasurer is a very important role. And I'm doing that because, like, just because I think it doesn't make sense why you would do that, because I think they would help prevent fraud. I know it would save money cutting the salary, and that's why they got rid of them. And so I think I'll do some paid amount. Ooh. Well, thank you for highlighting it. So partisan balance. I'm curious, what does it look like after 2013? Because I want to see what it looks like for the last 12 years. Hmm. Yes. I don't even know what some of these are. Oh, wow, people. And I think I also have it. Do I want to? Oh, important images. And where are you? Mhm. Okay. Oh. Hmm. So it looks like it's mixed now. Like mixed as in like. Hmm. Okay, that's starting to make more sense. Because like sadly even like state governments are like if it's not like a trifecta for either party, it's very hard for either any party to do anything. Like they're so trifecta and that stuff. So yeah.
Piece of paper that he likes to wave around, and visiting child daycare centers upwards of 100 times to see if he can get a look at the children. Before they head out to investigate the fraud, David warns Shirley that these people are incredibly violent.
Okay, so we have to be careful because these people are very violent. They're exceptionally violent.
Shirley and David go to a child.
And that framing alone is very, very particular, and it has assumption and loaded language with it. So as you're watching the video, preparing for like an altercation to happen, because you don't because like sometimes I'll read these scenes to make it more dramatic, and they're like, wait, did you know something bad was going to happen, or like, is there a history? So like that already puts a loaded assumption behind the people they're seeing, and that when videos do that type of I don't want to say propaganda, but that type of leaning, well, I guess it could be seen as propaganda. It shows that every single I will say every single form of media has a bias, which is like fine, but there's more of overhanded bias in that stuff, and you're like, this is the lesson you should take no matter what. And like I understand that even a high bias, I try my best to double check sources, see if I'm wrong in that stuff. Yeah, and like even though like I have like I dislike this current administration and I made that transparent as them as my bias. I try to do my best to give my dues, see if there are other point of views, see the motivations, not assume malintent every single time. And like there also has to be a reasonable. I will do that to a point of reasonability, and I'm like, there's, and that can be another conversation if mine's too low or too high.
Care center and determine that because they cannot see in and the doors are locked in the middle of the day, then that means there is fraud. There couldn't possibly be children inside this center that two grown men and a cameraman can't just wander into freely. Clearly fraud.
I also remember that there is masked bodyguards behind them as well, and so they're not showing their face. And so yeah.
Shirley then points out as a complete non sequitur that the recently redesigned Minnesota flag looks suspiciously like the Somali flag.
And here in Minnesota, if you take a look at the Minnesota state flag, they recently changed it and it very much so resembles the flag of Somalia.
Because both are blue and have a star. Stars in the color blue are very unique for flags, as we all know. The clearest answer is that there was a conspiracy to make the Minnesota flag look like the Somali flag. Not that we had a whole ass contest to pick a new flag, which included a statewide open submission.
That would have been like a very interesting flag.
of flag ideas, which received over 2,000 submissions, including drawings from children and also just a photo of Duke, the dog mayor of Cormorant Village.
I mean, dogs are awesome.
Of those submissions, one was chosen by the Flag Selection Commission, and then together with the designer, they finalized a flag with a geometric shape on the left that looks like the state of Minnesota, the North Star, because we are the stars of the North, obviously, and then the color blue because we have over 10,000 lakes. But yeah, no, it's a Somali conspiracy. Then they visited another daycare center. Again, couldn't wander in freely, and when a woman answered the door and acted suspicious of them, again, 3 grown men with a camera trying to get into a daycare center, obviously that means fraud. Ignore
Also, why wouldn't you call ahead in that stuff?
for the fact that this entire community has been fucking terrorized for weeks at this point by masked, unidentified ICE agents targeting them in the streets and in their places of work and in their churches and schools. No, the only conclusion to be drawn here is fraud. They then waved David's papers in front of a few Somali people's faces, demanding them to explain what's going on here. Additional reminder that English is likely not the first language for a lot of these people that they are interrogating. But yes, their confusion is conclusive proof of fraud. Nick Shirley did peek inside this one, little peeping Tom, and at this one he did confirm he could see a child inside, but then later pronounced that there were no children inside. After they were done harassing child care centers, they went to a building with 14 different healthcare centers inside of it. Ignore the fact that it's a large office building with many offices. Again, most offices turned them away because there were at least 3 men wandering.
I mean, like, that also makes sense, like, for that, because, like, even for, like, corporations, like, I wouldn't be surprised if corporations saying, hey, do not record while on site, or bring people who will record on site, because for corporations or even some private institutes want to control the image that they show to the public. There might be a debate about if that's annoying, which to a degree it probably. But, like, yeah, I'm not surprised at them, like, closing the door. Especially, again, as I said, if I would see a random media influencer in the wild, unless I knew them, I'd be very skeptical and have some level of distrust because of some of how media influencers have interacted.
Around with a camera, though at one point it looked like there were an additional 2 masked men behind them. And then later in the video, Shirley says that he knew filming this video would be very dangerous, so he hired security, and then he invites viewers to help him fund his security in the future through a company called Blackline. He tells viewers to donate to Blackline Guardian Fund, which according to their website exists to extend protection to individuals and institutions facing credible threats but lacking the financial means to secure professional protective services. So poor Nick Shirley over here can't afford his own security detail, despite having over 1 million YouTube subscribers and a brand sponsor on this very video that probably paid him thousands. When they did get inside one of the offices, they were offered rates for childcare, and people were inside working, sitting at desks, on the phone, doing work. Of course, must be fraud. But then someone called the cops, and Shirley and everyone he was with were escorted out. Only explanation? Fraud. Shirley then explains that they just care about the fraud. It doesn't make them Islamophobic or racist. If it was a bunch of white people out here, we would be having the same conversation. But the reality is, no, you would not. You wouldn't, because multiple times throughout this video, Shirley and his good pal David, no last name, make sweeping claims about Somalians. When one guy in a
also, like, no, I'm surprised I didn't just even give a fake last name.
Man on the street interview asks Shirley who owns one of the daycare centers he's standing outside of. Shirley says Somalians.
Who supposedly runs it?
Somalians.
Oh my God.
David says these people are violent. The entire video ends with the declaration, "It is time to reclaim our cities from corruption and illegal fraudsters." If that daycare center was owned by white people, Shirley would not have responded whites when asked who owns this place. They would not be taking the alleged fraud of a group of white people and making sweeping statements about all white people. They would not be insinuating or outright stating that this is a problem within the white people community, that white people are really insular and secretive, that any white person in the vicinity community must know something, and if they pretend they don't, then that's suspicious, and that we need to reclaim our cities from the white illegal fraudsters. Reclaim our cities is exceptionally loaded language, and it is meant to play to conservative and MAGA fears of immigrants invading our cities without saying the quiet part out loud, with just enough plausible deniability to say, no, we're not racist. We just want our cities back. We just care about fraud. Not only that, but this is just bad journalism. In the day of independent journalists, no-name 23-year-olds with no training who can pick up a camera and show up anywhere asking outlandish questions no one can answer and putting dramatic music in the background, they can convince a surprising amount of the public that they're doing hard-hitting investigative journalism. And listen, I also don't have formal training as a journalist. That's why I'm always very clear with you guys that I am not a journalist. I am not trying to pawn off my work as investigative journalism. I usually rely on the work of journalists to get my facts, and then I dig deeper into the headlines to provide more context and my own legal takes as a lawyer. And as a lawyer, I can tell you that none of what is shown in that video, David's pieces of paper with no sourcing provided and video of allegedly empty daycare centers, would be sufficient for probable cause to suspect a crime is being committed. That is not sufficient work to even constitute actual investigative journalism. It's lazy. You show up and you film people without their consent to make them uncomfortable, which makes for good TV. You talk to one conspiracy theorist named David, no last name, while providing no sources or credentials, and pawn that off as proof. So I wanted to turn to actual journalists and investigative reporters to find out what's actually happening, because there is fraud happening in Minnesota.
I'm not commenting on like some of this because it's more of I'm not going to debate her credentials and that stuff because and I think that's a fair angle.
Allegedly hundreds of millions of dollars of it, and that's a problem. It's a waste of my taxpayer dollars, and it would be great to get that money back and to prevent it from happening in the future. The problem for Nick Shirley and the type of people who fall for this investigative journalism is that two things can be true at the same time, and they really struggle with the cognitive reasoning required for that level of critical thinking. There can be fraud happening. Some of the fraud could be committed by people of Somali origin, and also the Somali community as a whole can be mostly made up of good, law-abiding, tax-paying people, just like the white person community or the black community. The crimes of individuals do not equate to proclivity for crime in a whole community of people. And when you make sweeping statements to the contrary, these people are dangerous, they're insular and secretive, all fraud is being committed by Somali immigrants, that is, in fact, racism. You are equating an individual or group of individuals to the entire group based on their ethnicity. You are bunching them all together and slapping them with negative labels. That is racism. And it is people like Nick Shirley who are exploiting the racism and increased fear of immigrants to get views and sensationalize real news stories. So here's the facts, as reported on by actual journalists who did actual investigations and actual lawyers leading these prosecutions. On December 18th, U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, Joe Thompson, a Trump appointee who has spent his career as a U.S. prosecutor going after major cases of fraud, claimed that upwards of $9 billion in federal funds that go towards supporting 14 different Minnesota-run programs may have been stolen as part of numerous multi-layered fraud schemes in this state. This investigation grew out of his previous investigation into the Feeding Our Future fraud that was discovered during COVID. 57 defendants in that case have been convicted of stealing $300 million in COVID relief funds, the largest COVID-related fraud scam in the country. The founder of that nonprofit, who was convicted on multiple federal charges, was a white woman named Amy Bach. And we all know white women are really prone to fraud. Our brains can't really handle business too good, so oops, sometimes we steal. It's in our nature. Those 57 total defendants in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme were receiving payments from clinics meant to serve children with autism, leading to an investigation into those programs, then into childcare facilities, into home health services, and into services meant to provide people with stable housing, which uncovered multi-layered fraud activities that led to the current charges. The general scheme is that the defendants create these companies, provide zero services, and submit claims.
So they had a lot of shell companies and parent companies that were basically, that's how they got past the audit system, which was to be blown crap. It was too outdated to understand the current modern practices that these individuals are using to put fraud against the state of Minnesota.
To Medicaid for those services, then pocket the federal funds they receive from those claims. According to reporting from the Associated Press, quote, "The magnitude cannot be overstated," Thompson said. "What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes, it's staggering industrial-scale fraud." Of the 92 total defendants who have
and they've shut down whole entire divisions while they're doing well, it might be permanently shut down, I can't tell the future, because of such a rampant fraud that's happening. So like, autism facilities have been, a lot of them got shut down because of the extension of FEDA or fraud.
have been charged with participating in these fraud schemes, 82 are Somali Americans. However, according to
Feeding Our
actual
Future.
real investigative reporting from the Star Tribune, quote, while Minnesota is confronting one of the largest social services fraud scandals in its history, a Star Tribune review of court records shows the alleged fraud uncovered to date is closer to $218 million, including $24 million in the recent indictments involving housing and autism services. Programs across the country meant to help Americans weather the COVID-19 pandemic, from the meals program implicated in the Feeding Our Future crisis to the Paycheck Protection Program, were rife with fraud. Those numbers are widely expected to grow as ongoing state and federal investigations into the state programs continue. In December, Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson predicted that prosecutors will ultimately find evidence showing that $9 billion or more has been misappropriated from what he called 14 high-risk state programs. He declined to say how long it would take to prosecute at least $1 billion in fraud or provide other details to back up his assertion. But ever in pursuit of a
Also, like, that's one of my problems I have with us and Nick Shirley. Is, like, let's just say, for instance, like, that, he did uncover fraud and that stuff. Putting it on social media. And if it, like, they did not realize they were on notice or being investigated by the state, what Nick Shirley could have done is basically had basically put them on notice, and so they changed their behavior, making it harder for the police and the GOJ in Minnesota to investigate them, because they now realize that they're being investigated. So, like, so even if they were doing the bad things that Nick Shirley was accusing them of, I understand the press of the public and that stuff can sometimes help speed these things up. But, like, calling these exact places out and not being ambiguous with it, or saying, like, basically they would start hiding it better, which could also be a problem with the investigators and that stuff, because of now they would have to change the way they are discovering the facts about the new way they are committing fraud, because people are very annoyingly clever when it comes to doing insidious actions.
For furthering his racist mission to deport the brown immigrants and militarize the blue cities, Trump has latched onto the race of the defendants in these fraud schemes as proof that Minnesota is riddled with Somali fraud and money laundering under the watch of our Democratic governor, Tim Walz, and the only way to fix it is send in ICE and root out the Somali community and send them back to their garbage country. There are 107,000 Somali immigrants living in Minnesota, and 82 Somali Americans who allegedly committed fraud are being used as an excuse to terrorize all of them. Trump has ratcheted up the racist rhetoric by sharing false reports that money from these alleged fraud schemes was flowing straight to Al-Shabaab, an al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia. U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson confirmed at that press conference on the 18th that there is no evidence that defendants were sending money to or otherwise supporting terrorist organizations. He confirmed a significant portion of the funds was sent abroad, used to purchase real estate in places like Kenya and Turkey. Thompson said, quote, there's no indication that the defendants that we've charged were radicalized or seeking to fund Al-Shabaab or other terrorist groups. Prior to the Nick Shirley video, Governor Tim Walz had already increased scrutiny over these federally funded programs. He shut down at least one entirely and hired an independent auditor to scrutinize where payments are going.
And for forensic ones, he's hiring auditors, even multiple auditor companies, to go over the fraud because it's so rampant.
And so let's be really clear. Fraud is happening in Minnesota related to the misappropriation of federal funds through schemes that make claims for services they are not providing. According to actual investigative reporting from the Minnesota Star Tribune, which has been covering these stories for the last 15 years, as far back as 2009, an auditor report found that the state's DHS Personal Care Services program was, quote, unacceptably vulnerable to fraud and abuse due to insufficient oversight, including outdated technology and a lack of electronic verification. So the state was on alert for years, long before Walz became governor, that state programs were vulnerable to fraud. The first scheme involving
because, like, from my understanding is they created creation of the OLA in 1973, designed to be watchdogs, but agencies often ignored, prior findings not resolved year after year. Bipartisan legislation expanded social welfare programs without adding auditors to match the growth. From 1970s to 1990s, they got rid of their state treasurer in 1998, and the person was fired in 2003 because they wanted to give them time to leave and move the actions that part of the government did to another agencies and that stuff. The state auditors' powers were narrowed, shifting more over to oversight of internal bureaucrats and did not answer directly to voters. Also, other problem is they were basically looking into other government agencies, which that's fair, but a lot of the social aid programs were starting to get no longer be run by government agencies. They were done by the state. And sorry, I said that backwards. They were no longer run by the state, but they were run by individual nonprofits or like non-profit corporations, because like that becomes very complicated quickly. And there was the auditor level did not match for the government officials to the nonprofit sector. And the fraudsters began using sophisticated identity theft and shell companies.
Somali defendants that I saw reporting on occurred in 2015, years before Tim Walz became governor, when 3 Minneapolis daycare centers were raided and charged with misappropriating upwards of $6 million from the state's child care assistance program. Investigators concluded, quote, internal controls at the state DHS were insufficient to effectively prevent, detect, and investigate fraud. And the Star Tribune's reporting does not look good for the state, especially Attorney General Keith Ellison, seen as a progressive AG. Quote, Star Tribune reporters uncovered documents showing that the Education Department and the state Attorney General's office failed to act when a whistleblower accused the leader of Feeding Our Future of breaking the law in 2018,
and there was multiple reportings of Feeding Our Future multiple times, because they were like, they said they got food from local restaurants, and a lot of the restaurants were brand new under COVID, and a large amount, like 8 mil. One of the examples that they gave in the court case is like 8. I forgot. I am so sorry. I did not realize how close that break was there. But basically they had multiple accusations and they did not follow up. Which, yeah, no, that's problematic. And a lot, they did not follow up because they did not realize what they did not have a clear understanding if their job would actually let them go over it. And also they gave it the benefit of they encouraged the Feeding Our Future to investigate themselves, which is a problem if the top of the foundation itself is doing the fraud. And yeah, there's a lot of problems with it.
in 2019 before more than $200 million was paid to the nonprofit. Instead of opening an investigation, Attorney General Keith Ellison's office referred the whistleblower to other state and federal agencies. In late 2022, 2 months after the first indictments were issued, the Star Tribune revealed that daycares owned by several defendants in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme were still receiving payments from the state. A Star Tribune review of state and federal records.
They have now changed this, so as soon as you even get like one warning or suspected of it, they will freeze the payments now. And yeah, that's... Normally I'd be worried about like false charges, but I understand with a state with this level of fraud, over this one case is up to $250 million. And then one of the earlier cases said to $96 billion. Yeah, I try my best to be charitable, and maybe I'm too charitable, but even my level of charity does not go to that length of like, yeah, you need to crack down as a whole in that state. And I understand that people in that state are going to have problems now, like people who have autism services, people who are trying to find homes. They're going to get the bad end of the stick because of these bad actors and not even worse than bad actors, because the whole entire system is broken. But the amount of bad actors makes it so people cannot take advantage of services that they need.
Shows that Minnesota officials provided federal authorities with little or no evidence that Feeding Our Future was misappropriating government funds. That being said, Walz has been aware of the fraud and has taken some action to improve oversight over state programs, including signing legislation in 2023 to establish an inspector general at the Education Department and increased funding for fraud detection efforts. And in October of this year, according to the Star Tribune, quote, Walz ordered an outside audit of payments to providers in 14 state programs and announced a new system to review reimbursement claims. And this summer, the state's DHS began cutting off payments to companies that have a single credible allegation of fraud, which is a major change from past practices of continuing payments while investigators build a case. According to DHS, that has led to provider payment cutoffs 485 times this year, though it's unclear how much of a change that is from previous years. And the DHS Inspector General has 1,300 open cases, according to the Star Tribune. And of course, while there are many Somali people getting indicted in these crimes, there are also many non-Somali people taking advantage of the state's shoddy oversight. For example, there is widespread Medicaid fraud among addiction treatment providers in Minnesota, which is actively being investigated and does not involve the Somali community. But of course, all of these legitimate investigations and prosecutions of fraudulent activity in Minnesota, which is also happening across the country, along with the fact that we are home to the largest population of Somalis in the country, and we have a governor who was on the ticket that ran against Trump in 2024, has made us, and more specifically our Somali community, a target of Trump's midnight truth social rants and the right-wing misinformation machine that's been spitting out propaganda left and right, tying the fraudsters to Al-Shabaab despite no evidence, making outlandish claims about the size of the fraud despite
I did not realize that Trump actually accused a terrorist organization of receiving this money. While there is people from Feeding Our Future who did use the money to buy foreign houses or in other countries and that stuff, but that's more to protect their money investments because it'll be harder to reverse those transactions because it's another country getting involved. And so it was smart of the people breaking the law to basically make it sure the government cannot take the money back. That makes sense. Part of me wonders if you could still be like saying, hey, can you force them to sell it? But I have to see the law.
no evidence, and generally capitalizing on their base's growing fear of violent brown immigrants, of growing violent crime that doesn't exist, reminder that immigrants are less likely than citizens to commit crimes, and of Islamophobia that goes back decades. It's the perfect storm, and Trump is capitalizing on it, as is Nick Shirley in his investigative reporting. But the reality, it turns out, requires nuance, which isn't as compelling. It doesn't get the views and the clicks. No matter how creatively and clickbaity I title this video, it simply won't get the 1.4 million views that Nick Shirley's dramatic investigative reporting does. That's the reality of the world we live in and the internet that we have created as a society. Nuance is lost in the name of clicks. Because the reality is that people across the country are guilty of defrauding the federal government. Minnesota seems to be a hotbed of fraudulent activity, especially in the wake of the huge Feeding Our Future scandal. A lot of eyes are on Minnesota. The state has been on notice for at least 15 years that state programs are vulnerable to fraud and abuse. Tim Walz inherited that reality and has taken action to try to fix it. But unlike MAGA blowhards who are willing to bend over backwards to argue that Trump's a good person with good intentions to help people, I'm not emotionally attached to Democratic politicians. It is not the takedown that you think it is to say, haha, Democrats, Tim Walz failed you. Okay, primary him then. Give me a better candidate. I would happily vote for them over Walz. Bill Clinton's in the Epstein files? Okay, investigate him. Put him in prison. Keith Ellison failed to do his job and investigate
because on January 5th of this year, he said he was Tim Walz said he was not going to run for re-election.
Spread fraud, okay, let's replace him with someone better. Politicians are tools for the people to get what they want, period, full stop. And when we forget about that and start hero worshipping them because of political party affiliation or a sense of tribalism or for their charisma, we get Trump, or even Obama, sorry. When you take the nuances into account, you see a state system that failed us. And the people who have to actually pay for that, other than of course all of us whose tax dollars were stolen, are the people who should have actually received the services billed for, which is infuriating in a state with rampant housing shortages, a growing unhoused population, and vulnerable populations in need of medical services, autism services, childcare services, etc. These crimes absolutely should be investigated and prosecuted regardless of the race of who did the crimes. I firmly believe in paying taxes to provide these services, and it is the duty of the state to oversee those services. The more we cut taxes, the less oversight they're able to give for lack of resources. The shoddier the technology, the fewer the staff. But then when fraud like this occurs, of course the sentiment of taxpayers is going to be, why would I pay more in taxes when the people handling my tax dollars are incompetent? And so the cycle continues, and more services get cut, and vulnerable populations are left in the lurch. And the Somali community gets targeted with hate and ICE raids as a result of racism against them based on what a few Somali people have allegedly done. It's a mess, and it is absolutely worth being enraged about. But instead of having a larger conversation about the oversight role of state governments, about how to improve that oversight, to create regulations and provide funds for that oversight, how to better deliver aid and services to the people who need it most, instead, Trump and MAGA are using this entire situation as a means to further their racist anti-immigrant plan. And the fraud will keep happening, and the most vulnerable people among us will continue to suffer, and nothing will really change. Okay, so what can we do? First of all, support actual journalists by purchasing subscriptions to news media you trust, or to the Substacks of independent journalists whose work appears in actual publications, meaning it's been vetted and not just on a random YouTube channel that they started. If you are in Minnesota, you can have conversations with your state representatives and senators about this. They are far more accessible than federal Congress members. You can set up a one-on-one meeting, call their office, and voice your concerns about improving DHS oversight while also protecting our Somali community. The good thing about the local level is that you have a lot of agency here. You just need to voice your concern. You don't even need to be that knowledgeable, though of course informing yourself on the issues can help. But as a concerned citizen, you are their constituent. You voted for them. You pay their paycheck. You have a right to access them. Don't be afraid to exercise that right, even if it's just to ask questions about what they're doing about all this. And as always, I will use this as an opportunity to advocate for being active within your local community, your neighborhood association, your local mutual aid organization, just within your own friend group. Help.
This is a critique to Tim Walz. And I know this because I have family members who live in I'm gonna see how I can make this as big as possible. Where their senator or congress member actually went to run for president. And basically they got upset because while they were running for president, they basically did nothing for the state. I do think that's a problematic thing. Because I know it was 104 days, so not that 107. I can double check if it's 104 or 107 for Kamala Harris. I understand during those 100 days, and I assume it might be even before. That Tim Walz could not give the attentions he could as he should, the level he should as a governor. And I want to say some of the states have it, so if you run for another public office, you have to step down. And I think that should be a rule across the board, because it's not fair for the citizens who live in that state to have a politician they elected in not to do the work they were voted in because they're running for another office position. That's one of my major problems I have, and why I want term limits, is because I think the problem is they're always campaigning, they're not actually doing any of the solutions. So they're always worried about getting reelected, when I'm like, you should be actually doing actions of the people itself. And with term limits, at their last term, they're like, okay, I know I'm about to be out of term, and that stuff, and they realize what the actions they do now will be, last actions I do in Congress will impact how people view me, and how do I want the people of my state to view me. And that also might be the altruistic viewing of it. I also think term limits also help new ideas flow in.
Support and protect our immigrant communities, help support our unhoused neighbors. Look to the hyper-local level, your own street, your own neighborhood, your own district, for ways that you can push for supporting the people who need that support the most. We can and should push especially for our state governments to do something about this, but we must also support each other. That's the only way we get through this. And if you'd like to support my work heading into a brand new year of horrors, consider joining here on YouTube by clicking the big join button below, or supporting me over on Patreon, patreon.com/Legia Miller, where you get access to all these episodes completely.
I thought the join button was going to have... Alright. Where's join something else? Oh, join is that. Oh, do they only do this for subscriptions? YouTube. They should do that for joining.
Ad-free. Thank you to my multi-platinum patrons, Christopher Cohen.
And what I mean, by the way, is like where it has like a little effect around the new YouTube layout and that stuff, which actually that's one of the few things I like about the new YouTube layout. And I know this is not a new YouTube player; they are TVifying it, which annoys her.
Amber Arwood, Evan Friedley, Mark, Sarah Shelby, Art, David, Latranger Lucas, Thomas Johnson, Anthony Giles, and Tay. Your generosity makes this channel what it is, so thank you. And if you liked this episode, you'll like the one from last week about how Trump is attacking trans rights. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
But yeah. And so let me see if there's anything else. Oh, yes, there is. The other person brought up, and I was very curious, the Nick Shirley Act. And I'm like, what is the Nick Shirley Act? I thought that was more of a joke I saw on TikTok and didn't look past it because like everything is getting an act. And yeah, no, it is referring to AB 2624. The bill does not explicitly mention Nick Shirley at all. I am going to show the clip and then I'm going to tell you what the bill actually does and the background history of that. Please do not church it. Thank you.
If this bill passes, certain political groups will have more protections, more privacy than law enforcement. How would you respond?
Oh, already started.
If this bill passes,
so it was coined the Nick Shirley Act because of Carl D. Mayo of District of 75, which he is a GOP member, Republican.
certain political groups will have more protections, more privacy
Oh, it just didn't
than law
update.
enforcement. How would you respond to that criticism?
This bill ensures that we have an opportunity when people are being harassed, doxxed, subjected to violence, to have the ability to be able to protect themselves.
Shouldn't our law enforcement officers have that same right? You just said doxed, harassed,
Mr. DeMaio,
subjected to
Mr. DeMaio,
violence.
let's let the author finish her statement before you ask him further questions, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. I will speak to the merits of this bill, which is about whether or not people who are serving immigrants organizations should have the ability to be protected under the law.
Well, no, I asked a very specific question that you obviously don't want to answer. I said, your bill does that for these
I'm glad that you
political
understand
groups.
what my bill does.
And we'll get to some more specifics about what your bill does and does not do and whether it's constitutional. But I asked a very specific question.
Part of me wants to spoil the like what this bill's about because like that line of is it constitutional is hysterical right now. Should I ruin the surprise or not? I'm gonna put a pin on it. If he does it again, I might have to spell the bean a little bit early.
Why are we treating law enforcement, sworn law enforcement, differently than these agitators? You just said doxed, harassed, and threats of violence and actual violence.
Assemblymember
And I have
DeMaio, my
seen-
bill doesn't have anything to do with law enforcement. If you would like to speak on
No,
the merits of this particular bill and
Ms.
the content
Bonta,
of
Ms.
this bill,
Bonta, I'm
I'm
raising the
happy to
question
do
of why
so.
do we have a double standard? Why do we have a double standard? You said that people who are doxed, harassed, threatened with violence deserve protection. And I think that's a laudable goal. Why do we not provide the same protection for the men and women who put on the uniform and do the job, a dangerous job, every day, and sometimes are actually subjected to threats, doxing, and violence by the very groups that you now want to give anonymity to and privacy rights to? I think that the members of the public are going to look at this bill and say, on the one hand, this legislature has passed bills doxing law enforcement.
So the what? I'm filling the bill the bean a little bit. So the group that this is about immigration services that offer like institutions or nonprofits immigration services about if they can it's about them being doxxed. I don't. If anyone from immigration services or any nonprofits from immigration, like, and they're threatening cops, like, yeah, I understand, arrest them or charge them, but I don't like the wording of it because it's implying it's a systemic thing that there's a lot of them. So, where is the proof that there's a lot?
Revealing their identities, and at the same time, the groups that are targeting them are now given protection. How do we explain the double standard?
Assemblymember DeMaio, that is a rhetorical question because it really has nothing to do with the nature of this bill.
And through the chair, could you clarify the actual law?
Okay, just a second here. We're going to speak to the merits of this bill. Mr. DeMaio, you have ample opportunity on this committee to express your views, but that's not a question for the author to opine on. So let's continue.
So we won't be able to explore the double standard, and that's fine. But I wanted to point that out in case I was missing something here, in case we suddenly decided we were going to apply the same standards and protections and privacies for law enforcement. Does this apply to a Somali Leering Center? In 6218.11, you define a designated immigration support services facility as a facility where immigration support services are provided, including but not limited to nonprofit offices, Department of Justice recognized entities, community legal clinics, law offices, accredited representative sites that provide immigration legal services, and healthcare facilities. The Somali Leering Centers that were the subject of a national outcry on fraud, could they not be defined, could they not fall under the definition that you've provided, that if a citizen journalist or if CBS News that just showed up at a building looking at fake hospices in LA, showed up at some of these so-called service providers and was investigating waste, fraud, and abuse and took video of the offices and questioned
Mr.
people.
DeMaio, I believe that your question is would those facilities qualify under the bill? And let's ask that question and reserve your...
Also, like, he keeps doing a lot of leading questions, which is basically adding a lot of, making them leading into that, because, like, that was a whole entire, I can't think of another word besides sermon. Like, that was setting up a whole entire story, making it so you're more likely to say something, and the response is going to most likely indict you. So, when people do indicting statements, indicting questions like that, I find it highly problematic, and I find that person very suspicious. So to even frame the question of, like, a whole entire long story, instead of, like, very simple, point blank of, like, hey, would this bill be, what could Somali nonprofits, can this be applied to Somali nonprofit? And the example of it is the recent one that happened nationally. Why did you have to have a long story one with heavy language, with story and emotion?
Time for your opinion afterwards.
In your scenario, Assemblymember DeMaio, the folks who were investigating that were reporters, journalists. They were not subjecting any particular organization to violence or threats of violence. That is the nature of this bill.
No. Okay, so let me draw your attention. The reason why I wanted to establish that, because in section 6218.19, it says a person, business, or association shall not knowingly publicly post or publicly display, disclose, or distribute on the internet websites or social media the personal information which relates to the worksite, those fake.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. We actually have the bill. Let's look at 602 and see the exact wording. Hold on. What's the section again?
Hospices that might be. Why I wanted to establish that, because in section 6218.19,
and we're going to
it says a person, business, or association shall not knowingly publicly post or publicly display, disclose, or distribute on the internet websites or social media the personal information which relates to the worksite, those fake hospices that my colleagues so diligently and effectively helped reveal in Los Angeles, or the Leering Center that Mr. Shirley revealed in Minnesota.
And also, by the way, okay, so I'm just going to have to call this one out because, like, that. So you read the actual bill he's referring to. I might have to get a highlighter build for this. He only read half that statement. He read all the way up to 6218.19. A person or business avocation shall not only publicly post or publicly display, disclose, or distribute internet personal information image of the designated immigration services provider, employee, or volunteer, or other individual provider. And he stopped. And he's actually stopped right there. Image of the designated immigration provider. He stopped right there. But the other part that he forgot to say, or he omitted by purpose, which is when someone omits half a statement of the exact same line, that's very misleading. Employee or volunteer of any individuals residing at the same home address with the intent to either do the following. So if it's their home address as well as their business. And since I said it earlier, you can't dox them. Okay, that makes sense, since it's also a home address. Inciting a third party to commit immediate bodily harm. So designate immigration services provider, a volunteer, or threaten designated. And they said objective, reasonable fear of their personal safety. Even though I disliked the Nick Shirley video, he did not do threaten bodily harm, and there was no reasonable fear of personal safety. So both of those things would not apply to the Nick Shirley video.
Quote, any image of any designated immigration support services provider. You just acknowledged that those organizations would fall under the definition of designated immigration support services provider.
Assemblymember DeMaio, I acknowledged, just to clarify, because you're mischaracterizing what I supposedly acknowledged. What I acknowledged was that under the scenario that you offered, that individuals who were investigating were journalists. This bill ensures that we protect lawful free speech and opportunity for criticism.
Hold on a second. You do not provide an exemption for journalists. You also do not distinguish between whether posting video, like Ms. Macedo in her investigation, posted a video of 90 fake hospices, and Mr. Shirley had dozens or 50, 60 fake Leering centers for the Somali community in Minnesota. Posting the video apparently would be punishable under your law. Are you aware of those provisions?
In this bill, applicants have to show evidence of threats, harassment, or violence. In the scenario that you've offered, neither of those things were trying to be
No, not
done.
under 6218.19. Now, you may want to amend your bill to clarify that.
And by the way, this is not an amendment. Because what I will say, actually, kudos to California doing this, is when they amend something, they make it blue, and anything that's struck, removed, is red. And so there was added sections or removed sections, but that section was not added or removed to. So he was literally reading this, but did not read the whole entire clause of it.
But 6218.19, let's make it quite clear. Ms. Macedo would be sued. She'd be subject to sanction if she showed up at these groups and said that somehow waste, fraud, and abuse was occurring, which I think is a matter of public import, which is certainly within her rights as a legislator on behalf of her constituents and California taxpayers. But
no, that's not what that bill says. You have the bill in front of you. You're taking that wholeheartedly out of context. And this is why, I do not... Any primary sources from the government, I do not trust, and it's I might give it... Unless it's a government telling on themselves and that stuff, which, sometimes another division of the federal government will tell them. Because there was because they're supposed to be nonpartisan. But, my problem is... They can take statements out of so much context and not give any factual hurts to. They take a hint of the truth and then they make suppositions and assumptions with that. When you cut out the optionality of the statement, qualifiers of that statement, which is highly problematic.
But if she posted that video, she'd be in violation, arguably, of 6218.19.
I actually don't think so. Assemblymember,
it's your bill and it's what it says.
Under that scenario, Ms. Macedo, apologies for invoking your name into this particular example, would be operating in her role and purpose as a legislator. She would be offering and conducting investigation and an opportunity to provide insight or opinion about a particular action.
Is it because she's a legislator that she gets exempted? I'm trying to figure out
I think, wait a second. Okay, Mr. DeMaio, you have made your points very clear. You're very concerned about the interpretation. The author has explained that there's a difference in the situation as it relates to whether somebody is under threat of violence. We've made these points clear. Do you have anything further that you want to discuss?
Well, if that is your intent, then I think you have to clarify 6218.19 at a minimum. I will say this. This is not about protecting people from violence. This is about threatening and intimidating people who are trying to shine a light on bad behavior. If you have nothing to hide, why fear the transparency? But I will tell you this, the transparency is coming. You can threaten people that we're going to fine you for taking video of the misdeeds that some of these groups are doing, but it won't pass the First Amendment rights protections that the Supreme Court affords every citizen. You can try to bully them, Ms. Ponta, but it will not.
Mr. DeMaio, let's speak with decorum to our colleagues, please. Assemblymember Wilson.
Okay. And I'm going to make sure that's closed. But do you want to know? Oh, I will tell you what this bill is actually about and what it is actually doing. Because, yeah. Yeah, and also I did a cold reaction to that because I wanted to make sure I saved all my statements for the stream. But yeah. Yeah, adds in 20 seconds. Welcome back, Wrath. I'm just going over the Nick Shirley thing. Hello. And let's I just had to make sure I had to appear on there. I am doing well. I was reviewing the Nick Shirley Act because the viewer from yesterday, I will fully admit I was not aware of it, so I went down a rabbit hole. But what I thought, the Nick Shirley Act makes it so the Safe at Home program extends for immigration centers and people who work with immigrants. The Safe Home program, all it does is it substitutes mailing addresses. That's what it does. So currently it does it for victims of DAs, SA, stalking, human trafficking, child abduction, elder dependent abuse, gender affirming care, or mental health care workers. So any workers who work at immigration centers, they would be able to substitute their mailing address for their home address only to protect their information so they don't get doxxed. That's what the bill's about. That's what's extending. It's not saying that you cannot investigate immigration centers. It's just preventing people who work at those centers from getting their home addresses doxxed. That's. And also, the doxing has to be with the intent of threatening or causing them harm. And it has to be a where they think the person doxing is likely to commit the harm or reasonable fear of their own safety. And so, like, Nick Shirley, as I said, I didn't like his video, but he would still be able to do his video because he doxed no one's address in that video. I don't even think he said the addresses of the, actually, no, he said the locations of those businesses. But, like, he didn't dox the locations of the workers. They didn't dox the home locations of the workers. So that's a very different context. And yeah, so is there any questions about that at all? Because I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. The Safe at Home program was created in 1999. They update it slowly to protect more people, for especially nonprofits, who help with victims. Okay, that's good. I know that, I think Twitch changed it recently with the settings. Oh, thank you. For the hip hat. I know that Twitch made it so, like, you can only rewind VODs if you're not a subscriber, I believe. I have to double check if that's a thing. But yeah. So I thought it was very interesting. But like, the bill never mentions Nick Shirley, just that Congress member did. So I find it very, very interesting they did. And I was looking off stream to see the comments if anyone actually called out that, person Carl DeMaio for, like, Carl DeMaio did not say any of this when he read section 621819. He literally did not read that. Oh, I'm not high. Here, I'm not showing that. But like, and let me see if I can scroll up so you can see all of it. But like, yeah, he did not read that much of that section. So yeah, he did not read any of the qualifiers for the statement, and he didn't even read the full statement of the section. And all the YouTube comments show that, like, no one also read that section because they were like saying this is restricting a freedom of speech. And I'm like, if you want to get pedantical, it is a little, but like, there's going to be limits of free speech. The other part that I wanted to look into was did I actually read everything? Yeah, I want to say. I wanted to go over the fraud that the video for Trump about Margot and that stuff. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, no. Yes, it makes it sound like you can't provide any personal information or the image of the immigration center. And if it was just that part, I would agree with him. I think it's like you should be able to take pictures. You should be able to do journalistic reporting. And like personal information on the institute itself, yes. I don't need to know like the exact home address of someone. Like city and state. Like maybe like if they're running for office, like if someone's like running for office in California and they live in Florida, yeah, at that point, like knowing very general statement about that makes sense for their address. But otherwise, no. I don't need to know the home addresses of things. Oh, oopsie, wrong. Ooh, and we're gonna see if this loads.
President, he was better known for this.
You're fired.
Okay. Luckily, I remember what section it was. I did not realize it's not going to do the whole entire thing.
In a 2022 lawsuit, New York
Yeah, I'm actually going to let
Attorney General Letitia James accused Trump and his adult children of engaging in a decade-long scheme to fraudulently and falsely value their assets, resulting in $250 million in unlawful gains. James, a Democrat and a vocal critic of Trump, alleges the former president was able to obtain bank loans on more favorable terms by overvaluing his real estate. These properties include Trump's flagship Manhattan building, Trump Tower, an office building known as 40 Wall Street, the residential building Trump Park Avenue, and an estate north of New York City known as Seven Springs.
Cases like this are not rare, but this is one of the most unusual ones because of the high-profile identity of the person involved, the fact that it involves substantial number of properties with high values in New York.
The lawsuit said the triplex apartment in Trump Tower was calculated at 30,000 square feet, when in reality it's nearly 11,000 square feet. That resulted in a valuation of $327 million in 2015, more than triple the record-setting price for any.
And the problem comes from that is Trump used the value of his places to get loans, because he got the loans based off the increased evaluation of his buildings, which is where that became problematic.
Any apartment ever sold in the city at that point. And at Trump Park Avenue, the lawsuit claimed 12 rent-stabilized units were appraised at $750,000 total. According to Trump's financial statements in 2011 and 2012, those units were valued as if they were unrestricted for nearly $50 million.
In the law, there is no bright line between what constitutes a reasonable, perhaps exaggeration, but when you get to the point where the statement of value...
And I will make this very clear. If any president, any person running for president, no matter what political party, no matter who they are, if they are getting investigated for fraud, continue investigating them for fraud. No matter even if they're trying to run for president. If this happened to Biden, I would encourage it still. Because, like, if you make it so, like, if I run for president, I get stopped investigating for whatever thing, I would start running for, I'm not being investigated for anything, but if I did fraud in this imaginary world, I would run for president just so I would not get indicted or delay indictment. Again, I don't think I'm rich enough to actually delay trials, so that wouldn't work anyway. But
is so many multiples, 10, 20, 100 times what would be shown to be the actual value. A judge or jury can draw the conclusion if he wishes, and it would be justified that this is a fraud.
Trump has denied any wrongdoing and called the case a witch hunt. His lawyers have argued that his business dealings have been profitable for the banks involved.
The banks got back their money. Again, there was never a default. There was never a problem. Everything was perfect. There was no crime.
In the early proceedings before the trial, a New York judge ruled that Trump and two of his adult children, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., committed fraud. Both Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump have criticized the ruling, saying they relied on the company's accountants to compile their father's financial statements. Ivanka Trump was dismissed from the case after an appeals court ruled the state's legal claims against her were too old. In September, the judge ordered the cancellation of business certificates that allowed Trump to operate in the state, which could lead him to lose control of some New York properties.
You can't just take assets from somebody without compensation. If this goes forward, there has to be a process, which is certainly fair to the defendant, to Trump, to realize the proper value of those assets. Whether or not that Trump name is going to come off the buildings is very much intertwined with what is the way to realize the most value if those assets are sold.
Trump is not hiding at all his displeasure with this entire process.
This is a case that should have never been brought. It's a case that should be dismissed immediately. The fraud was on behalf of the court.
And so their tactic is to just, this happened, I want to say March of 2024, so right before the presidential election. So their strategy is to just keep delaying until the presidential election with the hopes that Trump would won. And he did, so basically the case was stuck in limbo land because of, like, it gets complicated when you try to, like, do crimes against the president and that stuff, and if it's not a certain level.
Attorney General wants to prohibit Trump and his company from entering into New York State commercial real estate acquisitions and applying for loans with state-registered lenders for 5 years. In early January, James said Trump and his company should pay about $370 million in penalties, more than the $250 million she originally estimated for their ill-gotten gains.
There's a lot of questions of where Trump would get the cash freed up to satisfy that. One possibility is he would have to sell some properties off or other assets to free up that amount of cash.
In October, an appeals court temporarily postponed the cancellation of Trump's business certificates while his lawyers contested the ruling.
The irony here is, if this goes forward and Trump is no longer involved, the very thing that he says would lend extraordinary value to these properties beyond, for example, the appraisal values, would haunt him because these properties would no longer have the Trump brand, and the values that would be realized, one would think, would be substantially lower.
There's like a Trump shoe even. There's a Trump phone. Trump has for President Trump's kudos, he is very good at selling the image of himself and making it very marketable and its own brand recognition. That's why, like, currently, the White House is selling like 2020 Trump 2028 hats right now. And I know he can't run from a third term, but I just don't even like making that as a conversational point. But like, he's selling that at the White House right now. Or he was at one point, I don't know if he still is. I have not actively checked for that one item. But like, so that's... Trump is very good at that, and they're shown to be... Trump is highly in the crypto market and that stuff. He makes a lot of deals on the benefit of crypto, and I can go on my own rant about cryptocurrency and that stuff.
Some legal experts say Trump's lawyers seem focused on building a detailed legal record for an appeal.
The appellate road is long.
Yeah, the funny thing is, Trump, please do not. Yeah. Like, literally, this is... Okay, by the way, I'm just saying this. I really dislike Trump's design taste. I don't understand why everything has to be gold. I think it's very tacky and very 80s or 90s. And maybe 70s, but more 80s. And it's hysterical that iPhone and Samsung are right next to each other. That's also a decently phone. Like, I have the Samsung 24 Ultra. And that's like 2 or 3 years old, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, this is the gold phone. $500? That looks... I mean... What the heck? Okay, I don't even know who's making these. Oh, okay, hold on. And yeah. And I'm just gonna do that. Yeah, no, Trump just likes that. But like, and the CEOs like Eric Thompson and that stuff. That's the phone in person. But yeah, that's the Trump phone. Also the specs are terrible for what it is. That's an old processor. Okay, I'll go down rabbit holes. I'm way too techie for my own good. But yeah, no, like, hold on, there's also, like, hold on. Trump, White House, what's it called? The Oval Room. Office. Before and after. And I don't know why I put another E. I typed it fast. There we go. And yes, as I know, this is from Twitter, but they're just the easiest image. So that's the White House. That's President Biden with someone. I'm sorry, I don't recognize foreign officials yet on site. And then Trump, President Trump with you even change the apostrophe, the chair coloring. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not gonna critique his design. But like no, Trump loves gold. I think Trump even said that he has a golden toilet. I have to double check that claim though. Oh, there's a sculpture. But yeah.
And it is not quick. And if we consider where we are now, I think that the scale tips heavily in favor of the Trump organization in being able to delay any final resolution of this case until after the next presidential election.
Politically, Trump has so far, used this and the other legal travails that he faces to paint himself as a victim of political persecution. In a lot of ways, it's worked with Republican core voters. But a loss could kind of turn the tables on that. Some of his legal problems could compound, and he could be hurt in the face of voters as he tries to return to the White House.
But yeah. So that's the fraud. So basically what he is, but like here's better pictures of it. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Okay, but like that's how much gold he has there. I don't know why there's up there. It was fashioned at the White House. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's the other part I was going to go into. Is so in May of 2024, a New York jury found Trump guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records, paying off Stormy Daniels. And Trump was found guilty and therefore sentenced to felony crimes. However, as this, so like he needs to be sentenced, but I don't know if he will be sentenced since he's a president. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if Trump actually survives his term, if he actually still gets sentenced. Because, like, I don't know if he'll actually live. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just saying statistically by his age. And then he was found civilly liable for 2 civil cases, May 2023. The Carol, essaying her in the mid-1990s. And then the second case, New York judge found Trump liably to deceive banks and insurance about his property values, and ordered him to pay a £454 million penalty for that. And then Trump also investigated Latita James because of her investigating Trump. So that was also what's happening as well. Okay, there we go. That fixed it. And let me see if there's anything like very like earth-shattering happening right now on and it's loading. But yeah. Is there any questions at all? There you go. Okay. Why is my computer going so slow? There we go. List. Going at. There we go. Let's see. Trump is still talking to Iran. Makes sense. Trump just left to go to Palm Beach, Florida. We just did a mineral agreement. Shipments are still happening. Oh, that's. Okay, and there's an ad in 5 seconds. Okay. Israel is still continuing their genocide, sadly. And there we go. I'm trying to. Is there anything that you want me to explain? Because I'm just seeing if there's. That's kind of funny. About. Okay. So the Prime Minister of Israel just said that he got diagnosed with early stage of prostate cancer. Huh. Kind of interesting that former President Biden also has that. Kind of weird. I mean, statistically, I think that's kind of... let's see. Feed. Oh, Trump did say that he is going to... Twins? What about twins? Oh my god. I just saw this earlier today. Oh. I mean. Oh. I was like, oh, I got confused. I just saw this earlier on YouTube, and I can't search YouTube because YouTube's being weird. So they, there was the first charge of, soldier, betting on it. Because he basically was, it's implied that he was one of the strike team members to get the Maduro mission. And he basically betted on what the exact day that they were going to kidnap, Maduro. Oh, it's 400K. That makes sense why they're... That's a big bet. But yeah, no, twice makes sense. I just saw this earlier.
Fascinating one. The DOJ saying that a U.S. Special Forces soldier involved in the military operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been charged with using classified information about the mission to win more than $400,000 in an online betting market. Gannon Ken Van Dyke was part of the operation to capture Maduro in
Oh
January.
wait, do you know what polymarketing is? Or when this story will not make sense without it? Actually, I should just go into the spiel anyway, in case like anyone else doesn't. So polymarketing. Okay, I'm just gonna do. I don't think I'll get into a problem. So polymarketing lets you bet on anything. When will the U.S. and Iran get a permanent peace deal by? It'll be like this date. I am not, by the way, I disencourage polymarketing. I dislike polymarketing. I think polymarketing is a bad thing. I think it's very bad. And I would actually make all of it illegal. But basically you can bet on everything beyond like just sports. But basically you place like, make a 4 multiple choice, guess which one's most likely like, and put bets on that option. And it's become a very, very big thing, basically guessing which one's more likely. And you'll actually even pay attention instead of using polls now, they'll actually use polymarketing instead. Like, there's a whole entire polymarket thing. Like saying, who's going to be the president nominee. And there's going to be another ad in 8 seconds. So thank you for everyone who sticks through the ad. I will be working to actually add a game during the ad break so people can play that. Okay, I can speak now. That was actually a very, very good, like, second guess. I was not seeing that at all. I'm also just not a very good word unscrambler. Like, no, kudos to that. But like, yeah, no, so this is what polymarket is. You basically bet on something. I have problematic because at like one point they took it down, but they had a poll on how many people would die in Iran, like how many US soldiers would die. And that becomes I think that's unethical and like immoral. And so like I just thought, and also the problem comes to the point of they actually guessed who was going to be president, and so this will hedge the bets about how people vote, like saying, hey, if I know that I placed a bet on Kamala Harris winning, then I'm more likely to vote for Kamala Harris to ensure my bet wins. So like it becomes very weirdly unethical for like a proper democracy because people will just bet on what they know or
and he used his access to classified information to make money on the prediction market site Polymarket. That's according to the federal prosecutor's office in New York. They said that earlier today. Let's bring in Nima Rahmani. He's a former federal prosecutor. Nima, a lot to unpack with this one. Prosecutors are calling this insider trading with national security information. How are they framing these charges?
Austin, thanks for having me, and really a first, but probably won't be the last. And now that you can really kind of bet on anything, and even though this isn't your traditional wager, it's a prediction market, we are going to see this type of insider trading, really no different than trading on an inside tip on the stock market or a boxing match or other sporting event. It is fraudulent because it is defrauding someone on the other side. Now, it's not your typical security, so it's not necessarily insider trading under securities law, but it is a commodity, and that's why it's still considered fraud. And in this particular case, wire fraud under federal law. And of course, this is someone that has classified information. And we all remember the Espionage Act. That was what was used to charge Donald Trump and other folks recently down there in South Florida. So people may be familiar with the law on that basis. And when it comes to the Espionage Act, you don't necessarily have to sell the secrets or even give them to someone else under the law. As long as you use confidential information for a personal reason, that can be considered a violation of the law.
So I was reading what the DOJ put out. They say, and the government says that Van Dyke made more than $400,000 in profit here. What do we know about how investigators might have been able to trace that money? Do we have any indicators?
We do. And the good thing about AI and algorithms, they
because he put a bet of like $30,000, and then he knew the exact day that Maduro was going to be, I call kidnapped. The government's probably going to say capture, which
flag these suspicious transactions. So again, stock market, probably the best example, right? Someone buys a stock or a lot of stock shortly before it spikes in value. Well, that's going to raise red flags. Investigators at the SEC and DOJ are going to look into that transaction, particularly if it's someone who hasn't made that type of trade before. Similarly, right? And a lot of people on social media were pointing to this. How does someone make this type of predictions shortly before it happens? Obviously, we know that the president was talking about potentially using military force in Venezuela. But if someone makes that type of wager shortly before the U.S. goes into Venezuela and captures Maduro and bets a large amount, that is going to raise red flags. Authorities...
and so hold on, let me make sure I get this correct. I want to say that there was up to $1 million, maybe it's a series of multiple charges, but like $1 million, not $1 million. I have to double check with AP News. Hold on. I might have copy and pasted it. I might have erased it. Fudge. Okay, I don't have it anymore. So when the first ceasefire with Iran and that stuff, someone placed a bet. I want to say, close to $1 billion. It might have been a series of bets about saying the exact day of the cease. No, that's for oil. Predicting how much the futures of oils and stuff, and then $500 million on the exact day that the Iran ceasefire was going to happen, the first day. And these are through all the prediction markets. Well, I don't know if the first one's through a prediction market, but the second one, sure.
FBI, they're going to look at that transaction to see if it was based on non-public classified information in Austin. That's exactly what happened here.
There's also allegations, Nima, that he tried to cover his tracks, deleting accounts, changing email addresses, moving money into crypto. How important is that going to be with the prosecution's case?
Oh, it's very important. Obviously, we've all heard the expression, the cover-up is worse than the crime. Now, not necessarily the case here, but that is consciousness of guilt. People that try to cover their tracks, delete evidence, hide emails and other information, those are people who have likely committed a crime, and every judge in every courtroom in this state and this country are going to allow that evidence in as evidence of a guilty mind and consciousness of guilt.
So how much of this operation to nab Maduro is likely to come out in court? I mean, this was such a high-profile operation. It's a classified operation. It's got a lot of classified nature to it. So given the classified nature of this case, do you expect if this goes to trial that we'll learn more about the internal operations or something like that?
I don't think we will. And in addition to the information being classified, there's actually a special procedure in these types of cases, and it's the Classified Information Procedure Act, or CIPA. So essentially what has to happen is the discovery has to be turned over in a SCIF or secured facility for just the defense attorneys. The judge needs to make sure that anything the jurors see or is made public can potentially be redacted to remove any classified information. So there's a whole host of procedures. And again, going back to the Trump case, because again, it was a recent classified information case. If folks recall, Judge Cannon there in the Southern District of Florida spent a lot of time going through these very specific procedures, and it can actually make the case move very slowly. Now, on the defense side, there is a little bit of strategy here. There's actually something called gray mail, where sometimes good defense attorneys, what they'll do is threaten to push these cases to trial to try to work out some sort of better deal. And essentially, the argument is that, hey, if we go to trial, classified information may be revealed despite the protections of the Classified Information Procedures Act. So government, you might as well offer some sort of discount so my client takes a deal.
Good to see you, Nima. Thanks.
But yeah. It looks like, hold on, let me double. Okay, weird. Let me, I might have a breaking story. SCOTUS ruling today. Because I was looking at it. And let me see. Immigration crackdown. Oh, it's okay, scrolling back up. And within the last 24 hours. I didn't know there's approval ratings for the Supreme Court. Good to know, good to know. Okay, Trump, I guess, just realized it himself. But yeah, no, okay. I'm just laughing at the irony of some of the statement. He's upset because the budget not being funded and that stuff, which is normal. Our Congress cannot get done. Oh, the DOJ just dropped criminal probe into FED chair Jerome Powell. Which is a very, very interesting. It opens the path to pick a lead Fed. Okay, so to let the person in. Because I believe the Fed chair has to step down soon. He has to step, I want to say in May, he has to step down just because of the natural timing of his position. They're meeting Iran again. But yeah. The Vatican against AI. That's intriguing. But yeah. Oof. Oh, wait, how much is oil now? I haven't looked at the price of oil in a bit. Crackers. Oil price. It's 95. By the way, 114, the following day, it goes all the way down. That's the ceasefire. So, like, that is also what's going down. Oh, but I keep track of different... Ooh, how many people are retired? Oh, the number's not gone up yet. Okay. So I have that page up to see the Trump's polling numbers right now. Does this update in live time? I guess so. His numbers went back down again. Yeah. That's Trump's approval rating, right? And they actually even compare it to... Oof. And what I think is a very, very... That's sad. Confidence in Congress, a great deal. Only 4% of the nation. Climate change, happening, not happening, not sure. Oh, thank you for the... Wow! Thank you for the, follow! I was just looking to see Trump's latest polling numbers. And thank you, Casual Revolt, for the raid. Wow, thank you for everyone who just joined. That's so cute. Thank you for the follow. Thank you. I love all the emojis and everything. Going to that screen. Awesome. Oh, thank you for the follows. I need to get my alerts working again, but thank you. I was just going over about Trump's polling numbers. The Vatican's also going against AI. Random factoid. Very interesting. Also, ooh, maybe I should look into why Mike Johnson's gonna have a bad week. That'd be fun. Okay. Nope, that's a bit mean. Very intriguing. Thank you again, Cycling Boy Hoy. 1888. Awesome name, by the way. And hello, Elevator Lady. I mean, that is true. That is a... Oh! Thank you for the lurk. Hello, Casual Revolt. And let me see if I can go into that. There we go. Because cybersecurity partnerships. Also, oh wait, I'm on the wrong screen because I'm a silly head. Also, there we go. Oh, it helps if I'm on the right. There we go. Oh, now I remember what I was going to do. So this is my news feed. So it keeps appearing on the wrong screen. There we go. This is how I get all my news, which is all the feeds I have to read. This is how I actually stay up to date to see if there's anything interesting happening. Oh, there's AI guidelines. For the bits! Thank you so much! Okay. Oh, I should have asked, what were you guys talking about today on stream, Casual Revolt? Thank you. But yeah. I'm impressed. I didn't know you can get points that. Oh. That's cool. Oh, I will fully admit, I will say there is one use of AI, and I know this is AI. Have you guys seen the Iran Lego thing? Where Iran did a Lego video? Oh yeah, no, the bigotry is bad. American imperialism. I need to learn a lot more history. Okay. Thank you for the bits. Oh, I didn't know. That's. Thank you so much. Yeah. Wow. What was the thing that I was listening to? Yeah, no, like that's how I fully agree with that. Like Iran's one of the few uses of AI that I really like a lot. I will say that's and it's so I just started laughing because I'm like, oh fudge, this is so right. But so sad at the same time. Also like I don't know you did SCOTUS just rule on the tariffs about like Trump has to refund them today? Because Trump was talking about it like it just happened today. Because like hold on, wrong website. Because like I use this website to keep track of all Trump's Truth Socials, so I don't have to go on the website itself. So yeah. It also has a search feature. The timing of it doesn't work, but it's also a nice way to archive his tweets because it also keeps deleted Steve. Because it also keeps everything he's ever deleted. Yeah. Because like I isn't mean. I mean, it might be. It's hard to keep track of all the children. Thank you for 1,000 bits. Thank you for the follow. But yeah, so like this website has like all his things. If you actually go into Donald Trump and that stuff, it shows every single video document that's about him, a lot of his speeches if you don't want to go on YouTube for whatever reason. Like interviews he did, remarks he did, using New York Post. So it's like a very, very good archiving website. His calendar, White House releases, and I don't think they've updated it, but under Biden, yeah, they actually used to tell you where the press sat and everything. Which is very interesting. I have a lot of trackers and that stuff. 2025, I track the oil thing. So like this is want to say the presidential actions he did, the schedules. This is a rough estimate about his public schedule, so it's not doxing. In the White House calendar, official schedule, pool times. This one also has SCOTUS. If you believe you can actually even do all legislation, but you have to pay for that part. And I am going to show myself here a little bit. But I did create a tool. I did this to track all of the House and Senate members. So basically, if you click on someone, I just chose a random person. It shows you their state, their district. Wait, she's supposed to be. Maybe I need to fix the house. Okay. I don't know why it didn't work there. The party, I also color code it because I'm obsessed with color coding. Their terms, the remaining length of terms. Oh my gosh! Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you so much. I don't know what that is. I have to look up what that word means. Oh, thank you. I had to look up what that term was. So it also gets their Ballotpedia page, so it automatically pulls it up for them. I need to also put vote view, because it also shows a better view of their voting along party lines or not. Vote Smart, Open Secrets, Government Track, Unusual Royals, Track APAC. Also, it tells you how long they've been in office. I didn't. Okay. It also tells you their committee assignments. I also explain each link. I also have it so when you go into committees, it actually shows you each person in the committee. And it shows ranks don't actually, like, rank numbers don't mean anything. It's just the order that they appear on the website, like the first name in the list and that stuff. The only names that really matter are ranking members, vice chairs, and chairs. And I also have like a I have FAQ. I have a I'm going to show myself out again. So I do have a Discord where I actually aggregate all my resources and that stuff, because like I try my best. One of my main goals for this panel is to create a place so to educate the populace, and I know that one of the problems right now is the resources are everywhere, so I want to create a central hub for people to get to see all the resources. And I guess I'll just take a screenshot of it. Because I do have a resource section. I also make infographics. Oh, let me see. I also made this, which I think will be helpful. I don't want to Google Drive, because I made a resource tracking all the politics and Congress leaning. No, wait. Oh, that was going to be a private channel. Oh, here we go. And this is a public thing, so I don't care. So I also made this. This shows the U.S. Federal Congress from 1957 all the way to this year, to show how many people are in the House, how many people are in the Republicans, how the Democrat leanings, the Senate, and Democrat leanings and the Republican leanings, if they had a filibuster-proof majority, how many SCOTUS Dems were elected, the GOP, the president at the time, the history of all the SCOTUS names and that stuff, and SCOTUS numbers, so it's in live time. So I also created that resource because I was curious to see who was one, I wanted to see how long SCOTUS has been Republican, and also the last time that there was a filibuster-proof majority on both sides. No one. And I want to say, and this is like, I'm doing the exact same thing per state, but that's very big infancy stage. But if you want to share that Google Drive, that Excel sheet, you're all welcome to that. Because I think education is a very important thing. Let me see. There we go. Try to disable that real quick. And let me think. Oh, oopsie, I forgot to scroll down. Thank you for the bits. I'm sorry I missed that. And thank you for the hype train. Let me see. Oh, one of the things I just found out recently. Ooh, I didn't know hype chats were a thing. That's cool to learn. And there is an ad in 36 seconds. I have ads that are scheduled just so new viewers who come in don't get any ads. So if you do not want to see ads, so, use a Twitch Turbo, use a Prime, or subscribe. And thank you for everyone who sticks through the ads. And so one of the things I also is I have I did not realize this recently because I was getting very annoyed with the Senate to keep track of all the votes. Oh, there's a hype train. I need to get my votes. And hold on, let me see if I can switch it back. Okay, there we go. So this is in the Senate because the C-SPAN works differently, but this actually records all the votes and everything. And so you can actually see the exact moment that you do the votes. You can see the leanings. You can see a yays or nays. I think they do them in. This is done at 3:22. It is. So within an hour and a half, so they don't do it at the end of the business day. They do so pretty close to when the actual event happens. Yeah. So. Oh, Excel sheets I made. But yeah, I try my best to find as many resources as I can. Back onto I missed all the head pads. That's very sad. Can't believe I missed so many head pads. I really need to add more sound alerts. And I think that probably. Okay, so I'm like 1 away. But yeah. One of the things is that. I was actually going over how my computer does not like this. I'm going. Whoa! Oh, thank you for the posture check. Thank you. There we go. I have a problem. I'm a tab hoarder, so like I have 20,000 tabs, which you probably can tell with how much tabs I have my screen. So I have to close them out. Let's see. Oh, that's actually a good segment I should do. I did see this. Because I think it'll be a good video to talk about. CNN's talk of Tucker Carlson. And by the way, I do not believe that I have very nice words about it. Can I spell his name correctly? That was weird. Does Twitch have a VTube? Oh, how do I do the VTuber? I have VTube Studio, and I have VBridger. So I have an iPhone that's mimicking the reactions to my live face. And VTube Studio. I actually, hold on. I think I might have that in my Discord. Because I use a lot of softwares, but that's because like if there's also a Labubu command or a Labubu redeem, and that will actually throw items at my face, which is fine, kind of funny. So maybe I should do more stuff myself. There we go. And did I really? Okay. I knew I had a copy of it. So that's the VTube Studio and that stuff. And that is VBridger. Back to what I was doing before. And then there's different ways. This is a 2D version of a VTuber. There's also 3D versions of them as well. And like how the VTuber sphere is very intriguing. And watching video. There we go.
Between he and the president has now reached.
Also, I will fully admit I might have a problem. I have addiction to browser extensions, so I have a lot of those as well. Yeah.
Other level. Let's watch what Tucker said on his show yesterday.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like, in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be.
And I, so funny that he says this because like he knows like how bad Trump is. Like I pull it up later, so I don't want to. Yeah, right here. We're very, like Tucker Carlson saying, we're very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. I hate him passionately. And then saying that, I feel pseudo guilty for it. Do people not really read the Dominion lawsuits that he did? Do they not really? I didn't know that he popularized that theory, but that does not surprise me. Yeah, that's like hysterical. I also did not realize, let me see, I want to say, I do watch, Philip DeFranco did a section on it, of, where he got segments about, Tucker Carlson's other remarks. Let's see. Let me get the video. Okay. There we go. Well, we're actually...
It was not intentional. That's all I'll say.
He's talking about his support for President Trump, which he effectively is saying he regrets.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting turnabout from the Republican National Convention when he was a primetime speaker and delivered like a 45-minute off-the-cuff, again, no notes, just about how this was the greatest option that anybody and any voter could want. And he has a very significant following that is vigorous in their support for him, and that support overlapped pretty directly with President Trump during the campaign, and I think Trump campaign officials would...
And yes, I'm doing this just because I just knew this segment exists. Please don't. Please don't. There we go.
Trump urged Republicans to redraw the congressional maps.
And we're going to skip ahead.
That once the patriarchy has been overthrown, as it has been,
yes,
you get a president like this, who's emotional, all about himself, is perpetually the victim.
And it's very funny that they think the patriarchy has been overthrown when I'm like, no, just the starts of, like, maybe if you want to be nice, the start of the patriarchy has been undone. Because it's so deep and institutional that is, and this might be a response to that being done, but I find it very interesting the wording he chose, as like there doesn't need to be anything else done.
That's from his most recent episode with his own brother, Buckley Carlson, who recently quit his job as J.D. Vance's deputy press secretary and is now speaking out against Trump.
This guy has
I didn't even know that he was his J.D. Vance, that Tucker Carlson's brother was a deputy press secretary for J.D. Vance. I find that so intriguing.
Failed in his responsibility. He is disdainful towards the American people. He's disdainful towards the people who put him in office.
The only people he's been loyal to are the neocons and his donors. You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like, in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now. You know, we'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say.
Now, a big thing to remember with Tucker Carlson is that while, you know, they're upset about a couple of issues that Democrats can get on board with, or things like Iran and the Epstein files, their primary complaints seem to be that Trump is not extreme enough. We're saying that he didn't crack down hard enough on the BLM protests. He didn't stick up for the incarcerated January 6 defendants during the Biden years. He didn't prosecute corrupt Democrats aggressively enough. He didn't investigate who really shot Charlie Kirk and never jumped on board the anti-vax train.
You didn't take the vax, but Trump did, and encouraged everyone else to take.
I didn't realize that, like, it makes sense the angle he's going from because he wants some relevancy in this new era. But it's very, very like, it makes, he's joining himself with the Nick Fuentes crowd. I understand that. Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment.
And then never apologized, even when it became clear that the vax had killed hundreds of thousands of people around the world. It was poison.
No. I would love to see the proof. I would love to see where they're getting their numbers and figures from.
And look at the cancer rates, look at the fertility rates, like everything about it was a
Okay. Oh, random factoid. Condoms are going to be impacted by the Iran war now, which is hysterical to me. Because they're not going to have to increase the price of condoms. Random factoid.
bioweapon aimed at us.
Yes.
And Trump didn't apologize for that.
He, to this day, will still talk about the success of Operation Warp Speed, which allowed these things to come to market, which allowed the.
You know what he said to me? I actually raised it with him because I'm so upset about it. But he did the same thing he did on the Iran war. When I talked to him about the Iran war, you say, well, like, this is hurting all these people. He's like, you don't believe in the polio vaccine? Like, that was a good vaccine, don't you think? It's like, I guess I believe in the polio. I don't know. I mean, but that's not what we're talking about. It's like, what does that have to do with it? You mentioned Iran. He's like, do you think they should have nuclear weapons? No, I don't think.
You don't. Also, part of me wonders, and this is one of the things I keep. I'm debating about how. What's the word? Able Trump is. I'm not like doing this as a mean thing, like as in how much does Trump actually remember at this point? Because like he's at an age where like I would even tell my family members around that age to not even run for politics because it's just more people are going to take advantage of you and I don't want them to be taken advantage of. So I'm curious to see, like, does Trump even remember making the first ceasefire for Iran because of his age and how he seems to not. I've been listening to different things, like he wasn't even able to even keep track for like about one subject point within like in itself. He like changing 3 times within it, and I don't know like how bad he is. And I'm like
not for nuclear weapons in general, but it was a non sequitur designed to shut down the conversation.
You also had Talking Buck take an issue with Trump's offensive words and behavior towards Christians, whether threatening war crimes on Easter, attacking the Pope, or most recently posting an image of himself as Jesus. And then actually touching on that, Trump now appears to be trying to get back into good graces with his Christian base by having an event called America Reads the Bible.
Oh, I need to see who's going to see that, because I want to see, like, I'm just curious to see how the response was. But yeah, no, he seems to be, like, getting really, really bad. Like, I know that last year I might pay attention to Trump's email letters to his donors because I find it funny. Yes. And I'll fully admit, Biden might not have been the best. Like, I would say the same thing about Biden. Like, I don't think he was in his best shape in his last year. And do I think it was fair to American people a bit? No. Do I still think he's better than Trump? Yes. But yeah, no, it's very, very interesting how different the media, the ecosystem talks about Trump versus Biden. Even like when like Trump fell up and down the stairs twice, or like two times he fell down. And I remember hearing about that because of like what I read on social media, but I don't remember seeing any of the legacy media places talking about it. And I'm like, you talked about Biden falling, which I feel bad for, like, any person falling. But, like, if he comments on one president falling, why not the other one?
Acknowledge that certainly wasn't hurtful in any way, shape, or form. That was only helpful. I think the big question that I've had throughout kind of the splits through various parts of the MAGA universe, sometimes they can be overstated, sometimes we try and read too much into them, but on Tucker Carlson specifically is the number of times they've kind of toggled back and forth between, I'm kind of out of the circle now, no, now I'm back in it, and then all of a sudden he shows up at the White House for an oil executive event and is standing right next to him.
There like 5 days before.
Yeah, and so like I don't necessarily read that much into it.
And I feel like part of me wonders with a lot of how do I word this? The right-winged media influencers, a lot of them, I don't know if they're grifters and that stuff. Some of them are, definitely. But some of them, I think they believe the stuff they say out of their mouth. I wonder how much it's going to change as the pendulum swings to the other side when it comes to the media and that stuff. And same with companies. Companies are very weird. Yeah, no.
Because for whatever reason, whatever he says publicly, he can still eventually get the president on the phone. I think the biggest question right now is the frustration that Josh was alluding to nationally with the war. The frustration for younger voters who the idea, many of them very shaped by the experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, thinking we were lied to or we were misled. Yeah. And what the kind of, I guess, durability of that.
Oh, I saw this video recently by More Perfect Union. I might schedule to watch it, but it has a very interesting statement that I didn't realize that oil and the stock value of oil is actually said if what do you mean by Trump stop war? But like I agree. Peace is needed in Iran, and I vehemently dislike what Trump is doing to Iran and Israel Israel needs to get out of Lebanon as well, and out of Palestine, and stop the genocide. Because right now, what's the latest thing I read? My Twitter thing was not working correctly. I think Trump is going to Palm Beach right now. Me? I'd say socialist is if you have to push me for a title. And that stuff, but like I want universal basic income. And I want term limits, and for ideally 12 years. I want 20 years for SCOTUS members. I want more. I don't think CEOs should exist. There should be work co-ops only. Mostly, I'm gonna say I don't. And that stuff, because if I say only, I don't know how you would enforce that. And I want to read Marxist. He's on my to-do list to read. I'm sorry, I don't have those phone numbers. But I do want the war to stop, and I encourage, I would have to, I'm just curious to see, Congress, where is this one? Oh, I haven't actually seen what Congress is doing today. And yeah, I would also, for SCOTUS nominees, I would also make it so it would have to be chosen by maybe a committee of a third party or maybe Congress members itself. Because the problem is a lot of our SCOTUS members, there is alleged tying them to the Federalist Society. So they all have their, that will make them biased if they're all part of that society. I chose 20 years, so it would be able to do, 8 years, 2 full presidents, and then with a third president, it would be able to, choose new SCOTUS members, so there'd be a lot of new fresh blood coming in. And I think that's one of the problems with this current SCOTUS court, is some of the older. No, I agree with President stopping war. But so there'd be constantly of new fresh blood. But yeah, I said, so 2 full presidents, well, two full presidents and then half a term of a president to make sure that another president, to make sure it's currently changing, because, like, the current 2, because, hold on, let me see if I have a problem, this is not as good, and I need to update it because because I think their ages are off now. And I wanted it to be longer than 12 years, because that's how long I would want Congress. But this is, like, saying all their ages, how long they've been sitting there, and, like, also the pictures are from the official SCOTUS website, so that's why their pictures might not match today. But, like, 78 years old, 76 years old. Justice Samuel Alito had, like, 2 big health scares earlier this year. And there's talks that he's going to step down so Trump can get another one. And there's rumors that Clarence Thomas might step down. That one I don't know. Because, like, I don't know what the benefits he gets are now. Oh, I see issues with term limits for SCOTUS judges in India. I have to look into India because I didn't actually realize India had SCOTUS limits. Yeah, no. Also, there might be also, like, for me, I would also put an age limit on Congress members, and maybe I would do the same thing with SCOTUS members as well, because I would actually tie Congress members cannot be older than the age of retirement. I'm attaching it to the age of retirement. So if life expectancy, like, increases by 100 years because of amazing future tech, that it would actually increase with that. Oh. I did not know that. I have not actually looked at it. I've looked at some of Europe's and that stuff, but more of took a deep dive on the Holocaust because I wanted to have more understanding of it, and especially the factors around it, but, like, what let those factors happen. And I also wanted the question of part of me is, like, did the people know what So I went down that deep dive. But yeah. That's intriguing. I need to look into more India. Because I know like random factoids, like I know a little bit of South Korea's government and a little bit of Japan's. Well, I know more about Japan's judicial system than their courts. I mean, than their government. I know random. I went down a deep dive when I was looking up how accurate one of my favorite games is Persona 5, and I wanted to see if the attitude about someone arrested or charged and that stuff, especially as a teenager, was accurate for Japan, and seeing the implications of it. Wait, is that true? I might have a breaking. Ooh, when is that? That is a fair question. I actually don't know the answer to that. When do you start taking annual fibers test? Okay, I have an AI answer. So. Yes, I did say Persona 5. Oh, huh. That's intriguing. About, like, I didn't know that at all about India. Oh. National. So federally there is no light, but it's so 7 yes, I'm trusting AI right now. I know there's a problem. So 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 75-year-olds, 87 years old. What age of retirement now? 67. So 62 is the earliest, but 70 is the latest. Huh, okay. This I don't know if he's house or son. Okay, no, he is. He's 84. So thank you for Labubu. From my understand, check this before I speak. Yeah, no, he's 80. my question. For my understanding, is there like from previous judges' places and that stuff, and it's usually going to align from it. But like if you look into the Federalist Society, I'm going to go to Wikipedia. And so if you go here, so basically you most likely choose from a bank of judges and that stuff. It might be judges recommended by your party and that stuff. But and then the House simple majority, and then same with the Senate, I believe. No, sorry, it doesn't have to go through the House. It just has to go through the Senate with a simple majority. Out of the current nine member society of the Supreme Court, 5 of them are former members of the organization of the Federalist Society. Because all judges right now just need a simple majority to pass. So like right before Biden stepped down, he passed a bunch of judges as well. But like, you know, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Amy Borat, and it's suspected that John Roberts served as a member. So and we're going back. Just chatting. But yes. And there is this website, which again is the Project 2025 tracker. It is an ad break. I want to work on it, so during my ad break, I would actually have trivia and that stuff that people can play, and so I might change it in the future to have trivia playing on the right side of me right now, and then people can answer that during the ad break time. But yeah, this shows all the overall progress. U.S. aid's gutted. White House is there. Department of State also has Epstein tracker. People discussing it. The cuts to NHS, DHS, VI. I'm basically oh, I'm not showing any website right now. That's kind of funny. Yeah, no, thank you for the subscription. But yeah, this is why. So this is tracks Project 2025 tracker. As a chat, I don't know what it means. I'm guessing AI, yeah. And this has a track so many objectives. It shows how well he's been doing, overall purchase not started, in progress, completed. Words, like keywords. And part of me wonders is, well, let me see if I can get my Discord on the thing. I just don't. Login. Okay, there we go. Oh. I didn't see so many people entered. So Twitch actually set it up now, so technically, stream chat, people viewing chat's different than talkative chat. And so, like, right here, I might reorganize this, but this is all the important websites I have. Federal Congress website, timeline of bills, and that stuff. So this has a very nice view, heat maps and that stuff. More detailed versions of bills. if I don't get a verification scan. This has you can get around it, but logins make it easier. I think this is the best bill tracker, but you need a free account, which is annoying. But like, it's amazing. Oh, also, I found this recently called apaction.org scorecard for 2024. And actually gives people scores for their action and referring to the Palestinian, the genocide in Palestine. So like voting, dear colleagues, statements, legislation, conclusions, and shows you Hall of Fame, Hall of Shame, and you can even download the Excel chart. You know it is. Yeah, no, that's fair. I can. I also have the FEC website. One of the website which tracks all the donors and that stuff. I just have it up there. One of the cooler websites that I saw. Okay, there you go. Shows how much the breakdown of the billionaires' political spending by party. So it shows how many much money Republicans have given so far, and how much Democrat parties have given so far. Thank you. And I'm like trying my best to create as many resources as I can because there's so much to keep track of. But no kings down there. And if you want to see the source, it tracks down like their wealth source. And this is from the FEC data, so you can double check that. This is their the Senate's terrible website when it comes to watching. Oh, random factoid. This is very weird that Senate does this. So this shows you every single item that's been done in the Senate, the exact timestamp of it, which is very helpful. It's just in the press section, which I would put that on the main website, but whatever. I don't like how they organize things. I might add this to my website because I think so like they adjourned. Wait, they adjourn? Oh. April 27th. Okay. The Senate will vote to. Oh, they're voting on to confirming someone on Monday. Robert Sakita. I don't even know who that is. Who is that? Oh, the ATF person. Interesting. Also, random factoid, I do not know. This is not doxing because it's public information. All the senators' phone numbers and that stuff. Also, random factoid, if I understand if people hate X, that's fine, that's fair, valid. But the Senate website gives you very live updates, which is very interesting. The House also keeps track of the vacancies right now. So there's like 5 vacancies. Which that's also. And then the leadership of the House. I mean, yeah. I have heavily modified Twitter because it's Twitter. I'm going to always forever call it Twitter. I also limits what I can see on, like, I don't like how much things are surrounding it.
One of the things I thought was very amusing to me was there's actually a phone background of this house schedule. So you can add this to your phone background if you want. I did not create this. Our government did. Which is very intriguing to me. And this is the house version of the numbers. Random factoid, the house's numbers actually have a live API, so you can actually refer to it anytime you want. So if you are actually doing anything computer programming wise, you can actually get live info as soon as the one happens, which is actually very fun. Then it does not happen. It annoys me. It's irksome. But yeah. And then the house has their own daily schedule. And yeah, the house adjourned until Monday. And I believe this is the official date and stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's. I did also have this. I know this is the old just random infographic. And I also try to add more resources, like all the presidents and that stuff, to see like how much of the vote they had. They're on holiday. I also have graphics I made. That's that. I also made this graphic for SCOTUS members to see which district they overpreside with. I might have to redo it because I think I did a bad job in Photoshop with it. But I wanted to highlight what sections each of the judges presided over when they went through emergency hearings. The structure, I made 2 versions of this because I couldn't decide if I liked the green background or white background. Saying who voted yay for Citizens United versus the Citizens United versus the FEC. So yeah. And also if you're curious about any of my setup, I'm back context and background. I am a computer science major, so I have probably too much tech for my own good, and I like to mess with tech. So like I explain each software I use if you want to look into that. I need to mention that's free. And I mentioned all the hardware I use. And I might, but yeah. I think that's all the resources I have. Oh, also an amazing video about the wealth disparity in the United States. Oh yeah, no, that's her. Because one of the goals I want to do is I wanted to make a SCOTUS website for every single court case ever. That would be because there is websites that have the court rulings, and I wanted to make a website that would show what how each SCOTUS judge voted, and if there were a Republican or a Democratic, if it was a Republican or a Democrat president that elected. So automatically created. And I also wanted to extend. Yeah, he's 79 now. I need to double check. I don't actually have the ages gain calculated correctly. And we're just going to close all this. But yeah. I'm also going to be working on making a trivia game during ad break. Well, oh, actually, wait, I mentioned that already. Oopsie, scroll moment. I'm good. I behave.
Frustration or disappointment will be coming into electoral seasons ahead.
I think
Do you think he's a
Yeah, no, he was on there before I was born as well.
wrestling with his conscience?
I think that Tucker had plenty of time to untorment himself between January 6, 2021 and Election Day of 2024. He had plenty of time to torment himself and say, I give up on this man. Instead, he embraced him. He helped propel him.
Also, like, I can go. I have like so many extensions on Chrome. I have like 3 just to fact check myself. And then I have a lot of them just to actually read the website because I dislike how many how news articles flow, and they put so much stuff on either side of it, not even just ads, but referring to other articles.
To this historic election win, I think that Tucker can't, by being sorry now, run away or rewrite history.
He had nothing to do with his election, in my opinion. I mean, Trump is like a singularly talented campaigner who made it through all these historic, like chaotic periods, disasters. And, you know, Kamala Harris made Trump president. Joe Biden made Trump president. Tucker's acting as if like he went out and he gave the endorsement and that rallied all these.
I will fully admit that I think that's not a 100% fair statement because I do think that Andrew Tate, forgot. Some of the kick streamers, I forgot their name, Joe Rogan, they helped a lot because they helped make the male base more aptitude for Trump. And some of them actually even had, like, are you saying the blonde woman? Or who? Because I'll fully admit, I went on a little deep dive as an AK, I just googled her name. And that was just interesting.
People like this guy was going to win anyway. It had nothing to do with it.
Maybe so, but
Yes.
Tucker did absolutely boost Trump. He did absolutely support Trump, and he did it despite, we know, privately saying totally different things. And to Geraldo's point, back in these text messages that were released in the Dominion defamation lawsuit, here's what Tucker.
Oh yeah, no, it's very intriguing. Yeah, it's very intriguing outfits. Oh fudge, my phone is dying. That's why my VTubers froze. They're not wearing the most flattering things. Oh, I'm just fast forwarding. Oh, so the older dude on the left. I didn't actually know who that was. I'm actually looking this up now. I did not know that. Oh my. Oh. Intriguing. I did not know that. But yeah. There's a very, I think a lot of conservatives have a very weird, I want to say plastic or Barbie doll feel, as in like they make it so their skin has no imperfections, which looks weird and very uncanny valley feel, which is just sad because I think their natural look would probably be the most pretty or handsomest. So like and there we go. I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah, it's like very weird. I don't know why they because like No, oh, I should add that as a command. So I stream from usually 1 p.m. EST to 4 p.m. EST. I might change my schedule around and that stuff depending on, like, I'll give live updates. Every single week I give a live calendar of it in my, like today I was a little bit late, but I give weekly things like that every single week. No, just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. I might increase my streaming amount, but like I still have to find a more efficient way to research because it takes because like I have like probably a way too complicated Notion system, because that's me, about showing like all of my research, if it's possible, already shown more resources, and I try my best to research stories before I talk about them and take notes. Like earlier today I went over the Minnesota fraud because I had someone who stopped it earlier by in the stream, and I wanted to understand it better. Hmm. Hmm. Huh. Oh, I think that's still working. Because oh, I think it's on my normal YouTube. No, I have like multiple YouTubes. Also, by the way, if you want any of my resources I do for researching, my Notion is public, because I want to make sure that, like, I want to make sure I'm held accountable in that stuff, and to understand my point of view. And like, these are my notes, which might look very weird. I forgot to fill out all of this, but like, I watched like a couple videos. But yeah. So the Minnesota fraud has been going on for the last 50 years, to be transparent. Minnesota has like really bad fraud problems that the state is just not prepared to handle at all. I'll fully, like, they do have fraud. I will disagree with Nick Shirley and how POTUS is responding to it, though. Nick Shirley's video has been debunked. And that stuff. And then POTUS, like, one of the POTUS members, like, were saying that the money went to, no, I'm not gonna say that. One of the GOP members said that it might have been funding like terrorist organizations, but that's also been debunked. But like Minnesota's been doing steps to curtail it for the last couple years as well. Like Minnesota has on its own website. No, wrong one. That's the wrong page. This is it. Where they have a timeline of actions they took to deal with Minnesota fraud. But like no. But yeah, no, like they don't have a state treasurer, which is to me very weird, but also very funny. At the exact same time, Texas and Florida got rid of their state treasurer, which is very interesting timing. I also did go into a little bit of the Nick Shirley Act, because I was oh, it was amended yesterday. Because that person mentioned the Nick Shirley Act, and I was curious about what it was. And technically, it's even not called the Nick Shirley Act. It's called AB 2624, Privacy for Immigration Support Providers. So I went over that because, like, it's also very. I watched the video of the Republican critiquing it and that stuff, and like I read the YouTube sections. So the Nick Shirley Act is not a real thing. A GOP person just labeled it as that, as a way to defame the bill. Because they were saying this bill would stop Nick Shirley from doing what he did. Which it wouldn't. He was just doing that to get it in the... Oh. Oh, in general, yeah, no, sir. I would have to, like... This is California, so I'd have to look in what AB stands for. But a lot of the bills are just named from where they're created. From what I've seen. In the bill. Oh. I want to say, do I have that still saved? Nope. But yeah. That reminds me, I forgot to double check when's the last status update of that. Last action's done. Well, is this the right session? Yep, it is the right Congress session. It is the right number. And it's more of the person who's in charge of feeding the founder. So let me double check that real quick before I keep getting the name wrong. Oh no, Feeding Our Future was actually led by. We actually go here, featuring. We go to here. Led by Amy Bonk, which is the woman on the left. And there was people who were Somalian who were part of the fraud case. But like, yeah, it's more of, sadly, Minnesota just does fraud. I'm just finding that the one of the main cases they're referring to. Who's the co-sponsors of this? Republican. Like, half the Republicans. What comment made this? What is the... Why didn't they keep that? Okay. No, that's fine. You can be lazy. I was just being nebby to see what the previous names of it were. Okay, I'm curious now. Yesterday in Congress. So how many bills passed yesterday? Only one passed. Oh, two passed in total. So a budget. Well, agree to the Senate. Oh, okay. I don't like how the Congress website works. I'm just gonna say that. Oh, that's what they meant by total. It shows both of them at the same time. Oh, what was loud? I'm sorry. Okay. Hold on, I can turn down my mic. I accidentally leaned into my mic. Oh, okay. They're talking about making the rules a thing again. Oh, by the way, that house has a nice version where you can actually go to... I'm not gonna play this audio here. But you can go, like, different timestamps and it'll show you. The bills, the caption text, so if you want to search something, you can go there. The rough schedule. Oh. Huh. That's intriguing. Okay. Oh, what was percent said? Oh, the freaking mining thing, which is so sad. Yeah. Oh, I'm also, before I forget as well. I'm just making. Make sure, like, with the rules you hit I agree to the rules above, just so you can see all the channels. Otherwise, you will not be able to see any of the channels. Okay, so I have a minute to find someone else. Because I don't want another ad. Should I find a new person? Or does anyone in chat recommend me for me to... Wait, wrong one. That's the wrong one. For any person for me to jump into. For rating. Because, okay. And hopefully, and... Trying to... And it's probably going to flip over to politics. Yeah, I'm asking for recommendations to rate. If I can reverse this quickly. Okay, there we go. Wow, okay. I did not realize my... Okay. That's fair. Okay. Yeah, we're going to raid that person then. Guest X broadcast. I thank you for everyone who joined. I'll be going... That's... Okay, I'll keep that name in the future. Thank you so much, and I will be streaming next Tuesday, and I hope to catch you all there, and thank you for everyone who stayed to watch during my stream. And what do I do? Raid. Or oh wait, it won't let me raid while I'm doing an ad. So I have to wait until the ad ends. That's good to know. I did not know that was a thing. Okay, Twitch is weird. So yeah. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. I have my ad is acting weird, so I have like 2 different ones because it's not scrolling. Weird. I will add more interactivity with it. Maybe I'll add more things to be thrown at me, which might be entertaining. But yeah. And I have like 40 seconds. Yeah, but that's interesting. Would not. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay, now I'm gonna send out actually over for some reason. My side glitched out. Oops. Huh? Okay. Okay. There we go. I don't there. Glitches are always the fun. Oh, thank you for the head pat. I missed it.